shoot, I don't have time to tell her that. Hi, I'd like to welcome everybody to the Wednesday, February 22nd school committee meeting. We will call the meeting to order and just begin the meeting with reading our mission statement. The Douglas Public Schools offer diverse learning experiences that meet the academic, social, physical, and emotional needs of all students. We provide a safe, supportive, and challenging learning environment in which students may achieve academic success and personal growth. Decisions are made in the best interest of students. If we could all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I apologize for my hoarse voice. That's the season that we're in. And we will start off with our student representative, Anthony Demayo. Please come on up. Right over here. Did I get your last name correct?
Good evening, everybody. My name is Anthony Demayo, and I am a senior at the high school. I am here to share with you some of the upcoming events and news within the school. We have finally made it to February, over halfway through the school year, meaning Term 2 has just ended and report cards for the quarter can be found on iPass. Course selections for the next year will start next week. The winter sports teams are continuing to impress us per usual. Both basketball teams were able to beat Uxbridge teams last week. The indoor track team keeps setting personal records for every meet they attend, and the cheer team is getting ready for their first competition in 2 years. The clubs and extracurriculars at the high school have also been landing us some impressive achievements. Last Friday, the drama club had their first performance in 2 years, performing the play Clue based on the board game and movie. With a phenomenal set by the crew, the cast did great and even threw a little improv in there too. The Robotics Club also had a competition scrimmage on Friday and almost tripled their initial score. The robot managed all the moving and carrying of objects and other intricate tasks required. On January 26th, the DECA Club did very well in their regional competition in Worcester, with 3 of our Douglas students even moving on to the state competition in Boston. Furthermore, the high school is looking forward to multiple events in the upcoming months. Starting in March, the Snowball Dance will be held on March 4th. A week later, all the grades will get ready to compete against one another in our annual Winter Carnival on the 11th. The school's Job Shadow Day will return for St. Patrick's Day, where juniors will be given the opportunity to visit a workplace of their choice during the school day. Not to forget that the high school will also be hosting a karaoke night on April 29th. Finally, seniors are looking forward to their final few months. Senior payments for Disney are due on Valentine's Day, and the Disney trip will take place in April. Seniors can submit elementary school pictures to the yearbook for their throwback pages, and they will also have the opportunity to make personalized pages in the yearbook for themselves. More information on that can be found on Mr. Romano's principal's blog. Thank you for your attention. I hope you all have a wonderful evening.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, so now we'll move on to the public comment and communications portion of the agenda. The school committee welcomes public comment on items that are within the scope of the school committee's responsibilities. The public comment agenda item is reserved for this purpose. I do see we have a few speakers tonight, so just to kind of give you a layout of how it works, you are allowed to up to 3 minutes to present your comments, and you start with saying your name and your address. Talk to me. Just keep it respectful, and I think Ms. Brown is going to sort of give you a heads up or a hand up when you're about 30 seconds away from time. So if anybody would like to come up, you can take a seat over here. I mean, yes, in this case, yes.
Hello, my name is Megan Winchell. My address is 286 North Main Street, Whitensville, Mass. My children attend Douglas by school choice. I have a daughter who is 11 years old. She's a 6th grader in the middle school, and we have had some issues this year come to light. My daughter's a type 1 diabetic. For anyone not familiar with that, that is a autoimmune disease where she is insulin dependent. Without insulin, my daughter would die. She has to keep her blood sugar levels within a particular range, and if she has a very low level or a very high level, both of those instances can be life-threatening, and it requires 24/7 monitoring. We ran into an issue this year due to the pandemic where we've had a lack of a nurse full-time on site in the Douglas Middle School, and it has led to several instances where the outcome was not fatal, but it could have been. And I think at this point, we're just looking, myself, talking on behalf of my daughter. I have a nephew who's also type 1 diabetic, but I know there are other medically fragile children in the school system, and we would just like some direction on maybe amending policy or looking at what policy changes we can put into place where this pandemic has highlighted areas where the school seems to be failing at, that we have to look and address and keep our kids safe. There is lots of studies out there right now that since the pandemic, they are seeing an increase in children being diagnosed type 1 diabetic after experiencing COVID. Douglas has a very high number of diabetics in comparison to some of the other areas in the school system, and I think that we just have to address certain instances to make sure that it is not solely one nurse's responsibility to care for these children. We have one nurse in the elementary school, which would effectively leave 600 and almost 50 students and all staff between the two schools liable to that one nurse. And there has to be other staff that is educated and knows how to interact with some of these kids, signs to look out for, and things that they can do to step in to try to help avoid an emergency situation. And I think we're just looking for everything in the best interest of all the children in the school to make sure everyone is kept safe.
Thank you,
I
Megan.
mean that. Sorry. You still have 30 seconds. Go, keep going.
Oh, I'm okay.
Thanks, Megan.
My name is Devin Klansik. My address is 92 South Street in Douglas, Mass. Megan is my sister. My niece is a type 1 diabetic. My fourth grader is also a type 1 diabetic in the Douglas school system. In addition to type 1 diabetes, he also has celiac disease, which is an autoimmune disease, which means he can't have exposure to gluten, wheat, rye, barley. Pretty hard to manage as a child in the world itself, never mind the school system. Also something that is watched out for by the nurse. With regard to this particular situation, we're speaking on behalf of our children, but the bigger voice we'd like to be heard is that there are a lot of kids in the Douglas school system that are medically challenged. What we're looking to have the school really be aware of and our administrators is understanding who these children are. We have one nurse right now. We have them on the hunt for a nurse because we've now brought this to their attention. That's all well and good, but what we're seeking to accomplish is for our administrators to understand, be able to identify who these medically compromised children are and know what their needs or requirements could be. With any one of the diseases we've mentioned, the celiac, the type 1 diabetes, we have friends who have children with anaphylaxis. These children may not even be able to ask for help when they need it. That's a really scary reality we live with as parents each and every day, so we need to feel safe. Part of your mission statement is you want these kids to be safe here. We need to be safe in the administration of these schools, knowing that they do have our kids' best interests at heart, that they can pick these kids out of a crowd and know, yes, this is this child, this is their medical condition, this is what they may need from me, and I know how to help them, where their supplies might be, or what else is going on, not relying, as my sister mentioned, on one nurse for 646 is the actual number, I believe, of students. We have provided the school with examples. Both Mr. O'Brien, Dr. Vieira, Mr. Bell have been given examples of situations that we've encountered, things that have come up recently. We have actually, introduced them to some of the specifics about diabetes, and while they were willing to learn, which much is appreciated, it's not just the diabetic kids. There's a broader scope here that one person can't handle on her own. We really need to get some real policy, whether what's worked in the past has worked in the past, doesn't mean that works today. Things change every day. Technology changes. Education changes. We have to be current and supporting our students the best way we can. We're, hoping to be able to work collaboratively with the school. Obviously, as the parents of these medically, challenged kids, we know it's a lot of work. We want to be able to work with administrators to find the best solutions, but we need to make sure that there is going to be effective change in keeping them safe here. So that's really what we're trying to accomplish at this point.
Thank you, Devin.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you, ladies.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else for public comment?
Hi, I'm Beth Bergstrom, 26 North Street, B13 in Douglas. I just kind of want to echo behind what they said about the kids. There is existing policy somewhere. Somehow. We allow administrators, teachers, everybody gets trained on things like EpiPens every year. We have a group of kids, you know, my daughter specifically, she has a nasal rescue med. After she's in a prolonged seizure, she has been in prolonged seizures in the building where she stopped breathing. Her one-to-one is with her all day. Imagine being that one-to-one and seeing this child suffer and know that the nurse is at another building. And I don't think I'm not trying to beat a dead horse. I think we all know that it's an issue and it's something that we need to change. I think what's important is like my reality and Devin and Megan's reality. While they're similar, they're different. And I can't, as much as I'm empathetic to them and what they're going through and what their children go through every day, I can't fully understand. So as a parent, I have to look at that as the administrators and the school committee and the other people and say, you can't walk a day in my shoes because you never have. So I need to tell you what it's like. But I think we really need to look at a policy for the schools to allow in emergency situations for other staff to be trained to administer emergency medication. They can do EpiPens. They should be able to be trained for other things. So thank you for hearing me.
Thanks, Beth. Anybody else? Okay. Any old business? Any new business? Seeing none. We'll move on to the superintendent's report.
If it's okay with the committee, I'm going to take things out of order. I had third on my list, the update for the nurses, but I'm sure you may not want to say all the way to the end, so I'll just move that if it's all right with the chair.
Yes.
Okay.
I have a mother that's texting me asking if someone got the chat, but she couldn't be here because of the medical situation for her child.
Oh, I'm sorry. There was a chat. Donna D., I would like to provide comment if able, as well as via chat. Thank you.
Is that an option over YouTube?
As long as she states her name and address.
You want to do it?
No, yeah, I'll read it. Has she entered everything in?
Huh? Yeah, you're just going to turn the comment. I don't know if you mind looking at yourself.
Sorry. All right, so while she's typing in the chat, I'll give my nurse update, and then I'll read the comment. So, as people are aware of, we have a .5 vacancy at Douglas Elementary School, and we're in the process of looking for a long-term sub at Douglas Middle School. These positions were posted as soon as we received the required paperwork in order to be able to post for the positions. We've been actively seeking applicants and candidates, and we've been interviewing people. Today, we actually extended an offer to a candidate to be the full-time sub at Douglas Middle School. She will be coming here tomorrow to shadow one of the nurses to get a feel for the school, and if that goes all right, she said she would accept the job. She said she'd be able to start next Monday, February 7th. So That's some promising news. She came in yesterday and she Zoomed yesterday, came in today and met with the team at the middle school, and then tomorrow would like to spend the day at the middle school just to kind of get an idea of what it is. So she's going to be shadowing, I believe, Nurse Walker. So that's promising to know that that's happening, and then we'll continue to look for a .5 candidate at the elementary school. Questions have also come up as to what we do if a nurse is out, and consistent with what we've done for years is obviously the first thing is we look for a sub. If we're not able to get a sub, we arrange for internal coverage. When we had a .5 at the elementary school, we usually just slid that .5 over into one of the vacancies. Prior to that .5 being appointed, which I believe was 3-4 years ago, we had 4 nurses in the district and we couldn't find a sub. The nurses would cover for each other. The nurse leader would get together with the principals and the nurses and figure out the best way to arrange for coverage. And that's something that we've continued with in this time being. As was brought up, the pandemic, the situation has uncovered some deficiencies and things we need to look at and things we need to address and things we need to do better at to make sure everyone is safe. So just highlighting some of the things that we have been working on and we will work on. Thank you to Mrs. Winchell for giving me the contact at UMass Medical Center. I've reached out to them 3 times. We've been playing phone tag. We're trying to get people from UMass Medical to come here and do a training for our nurses, our administrators, our secretaries, and some of our teachers. I learned a little bit last week about the Dexcom monitoring system. Thank you, Devin. And I also found out that only 1 of our 4 schools is currently using that system. What it is if a parent so chooses, their child wears a patch, and you can track his or her blood sugar levels on an app on a phone. At this time, we don't have any diabetics at the primary school. We do at the middle school and at the high school. Today, I gave both Mr. Romano and Mr. O'Brien an iPad with a Dexcom app loaded on it. They're going to give it to the nurses to reach out to the families of students who are diabetics at the middle school and the high school and ask them if they would like to use that feature. Sometimes as kids get older, they may not want it, and parents say kids can manage it. We at least want to reach out to the parents of kids at the middle school and the high school to let them know that option's available. At the beginning of the year, nurses do a training for staff, whether it's about diabetics, kids who need EpiPens, kids who have food allergies, whatever it is. We have a process in place called SST, Student Study Team, which meets once a week, once every other week, depending on the building, in which administrators, adjustment counselors, and teachers get together to talk about kids. What I've asked the principals to do is to have the nurses attend these meetings on a more frequent basis, and at least 4 times a year, once a quarter, give an update or a refresher course on our kids who are medically fragile. We do that in September, but you have that training in September, you know what to do in September, but then January, February, March comes along. So we want to make sure that muscle memory is there for our staff. We want to make sure they know who our medically fragile kids are and what to do with them. So our nurses are going to be attending our SST meetings, and depending on who the child is, they'll decide who they invite to the meeting, which teachers, so on and so forth. We need to do more professional development for our staff. As was pointed out, our staff, they do know, but we need to make sure that they know who our medically fragile kids are, what to do if their blood sugar drops, what to do if their blood sugar spikes, what to do if a kid's stung by a bee. We need to make sure that that's in place and we have that constant PD. We're hoping to do that with UMass Medical and with the nurse at SST. I've been working with and have conversations with the Department of Public Health on looking at additional protocols that we can put in place here. We do have med delegation, which is what Ms. Bergstrom was speaking of, but you have to apply for that program. So when our nurse leader gets back, we'll apply for med delegation, which allows for principal secretaries or anyone who's trained to give medicine, whether it's Ritalin, Adderall, aspirin, ibuprofen, to students. And the final thing that we're looking at, and we'll do this again when our nurse leader is back, we need to make sure that our subfolders, our policy guides that nurses have are up-to-date, current, and with the most recent information. They enter a lot of that information into SNAP, but the issue is only nurses have access to SNAP. We recently gave principals access. SNAP, for people who don't know, is the system that nurses enter in information about students. When they visit the nurse, what they gave for medication, so we can track a child's medical history. Principals have access to it, but what we need to do is make sure that everyone has a binder. So if something happens to a nurse and they're out, a principal, a secretary, a sub-nurse can go and look to say, here's what happens in September, here's what we need to do in October, and have that information available to principals or secretaries or assistant principals or deans, so they know who the kids are and exactly what to do. Again, the nurses have that, but we need to make sure that it's current, it's up to date, and has all the information on it. I just want to make sure that it's thorough. So those are some of the things that we've been working on now, and then we'll work on when our nurse leader comes back. So that's my update. I'll answer questions if the committee has them, and then I'll hopefully be able to read what's in the chat.
I had a question. When, in the system that all the students' information is kept in, what is that system?
That's called iPass.
iPass, okay. Can you pull up a student, can a teacher pull up a student and see like an icon, like a medical icon that indicates that this child has medical things going on?
I believe that,
Yes, Dr. Berry, yes.
yes.
Okay, so it's there, it's easy to access, it's sort of a cover page for the students.
It has the image of the student has like a little medical thing.
Okay.
I guess I can't get into too much detail, but
Okay.
they know that that child has a medical issue.
Yeah, I've seen that used in other school districts, that's why I'm wondering if
Yes.
I want, and it's been
It is
helpful as somebody who doesn't know the students, you know, especially when students are moving around the building, you know, you might come in contact with a student that's not in your class as a teacher who's having a medical emergency. You know, being able to access something quickly to say, okay, what could possibly be going on with this student, you know?
I'll defer to, is that,
Yeah, come on up.
so John and Cindy said that it's
Yeah.
available to,
It's not detailed information, it just says there's a medical.
okay.
Like, so teachers can familiarize themselves with the needs of the students. It makes it easy for them to do that, okay.
And we're hoping to do that through, again, it's not at the beginning of the year, but I'd like to have the nurses go 4 times a year or 3 times a year to SST in order to be able to have that dialogue with people.
Do any new policies need to be put in place to do any of the things that you've just mentioned? Teachers helping out
Not,
of their normal,
the med delegation thing, I reached out to the Department of Public Health twice on it, and they sent me some literature. In order to be able, only a nurse can apply for it, so I can't apply for it. And before a nurse can apply for it, they have to take an online course. So with our current nurse leader out, I'm going to wait till she gets back before we can dive in. We do have policy around med delegation that when we were meeting, we looked at and we pulled up, so we do have policy. We'll have to check to see if it needs to be updated. But the nurse leader is the one who has to apply through the Mass Department of Public Health for that med delegation.
And I think that's super important because, you know, having worked in the medical field, like you want to make sure that the people who are giving medicine know what they're doing. They've been they've been trained, they have the proper training, they have a certificate or whatever. You want to know that they are comfortable giving these medications. So you don't want just anybody giving medication.
The policy, the way it's written now says, you know, someone can give meds to a student, has to be in a bottle, clearly marked with the student's name on it, clearly marked with the quantity, clearly marked with how often it needs to be given. So we already have current policy on it. I don't know if we might have to update it.
Other questions? I'd like to say a few things. I've been thinking about this a lot over the past few weeks when the concerns were first brought up to us. And just to give you a little bit of background, parents who spoke specifically, where I'm coming from, my first daughter was born weighing under 2 pounds, and she could have died from just catching the common cold within the first year of her life. We're past that. She made it past the first year mark. So to Beth's point, I have a reality that has a connection, that I recognize how fragile someone can be when they seem okay. I'm in my last handful of months here on the school committee, and I keep asking myself, like, you know, what's my purpose? What has all this time been for? And I think that our purpose is to take care of students and children in Douglas so that they can learn, so that they can grow, so that they can develop. And, you know, safety and security is part of our policy for a reason. A kid can't a kid can't learn, a kid can't grow if they don't feel safe. I understand the kind of trust that you have to put out in the world, and you have no choice to let your kids walk out the door. And we need to be doing our part on our end to let you know that they are as safe as they possibly could be. I think over the past almost 3 years, I've spent a lot of time saying thank you and good job. And I love that part of this. Like, we're going to hear from 2 principals in a minute. And like, I looked over the information, there's good information. I love the part where we get to say good job. But I think that we're not following through on our responsibility if we don't identify the times when it wasn't good enough. And I think that this whole situation, in my opinion, and it was only mine, was not good enough. I think that it should have been treated more urgently. And I know that there's so many things that were done, but I think that there could have been more. And I think that the other piece is the attitude that was shown to people. You shouldn't tell somebody that it's not an optimal situation, because if they're telling you that with one little slip up, their child could die, and you say, yes, but it's not optimal, it's just tough, because I know that there's so many rules and laws and procedures around the way a district operates. And there's reasons for it, and there's good reasons for it. And there's reasons why we try to communicate in professional ways. But at the end of the day, if whoever is representing the school can't connect with a parent about what they're going through and about what their child is going through, then we're missing out on something. And this is not to point fingers and blame. Like, we live in such an extreme society right now. Like, either you're right or you're wrong. You're on this team, you're on that team. And that's not where we're at right now. There's something in between where a lot can have been done and a lot can have been right, but we still need to look at the portion that was not right. And we still need to look at the portion that could have and should have been done better. And it's okay that it wasn't perfect, because we got lucky. We got lucky that it wasn't perfect. And I just don't ever want to see this happen again. And going forward, what happens if this person takes the full-time temp position but then gets in a car crash or is out sick for a long period of time? Or can we change our substitute salary rates to make them more competitive with local schools? How can we access ESSER grants? And I'm just throwing stuff at the wall, but I think that that's what needs to be done, is keep throwing everything at the wall. How quickly can we get that technology into hands of people who can use it? Because we've got a tech director, we've got some super smart tech people. Like, if it's being used in one building, why is it taking a certain amount of time for it to be used in other buildings? I think it's really easy to fall into, I don't know how to say this. I think for the people who work in the district, so much and experience so much in a way that, like, we can't understand. And there's so much to do in a way that we can't understand, we can't know. But the benefit of somebody sitting on the outside is that we have a 100-yard view on this. And from the 100-yard view, like, we lost the heart of it, which was the student, and the student being okay. And even though there was a ton of effort put in, I don't want to say that there wasn't. There was a ton of effort put in. When I asked myself, could there have been more? Could there be better empathy? I think the answer is yes. And I hate to say that, because I'm not this kind of confrontational person, but that's how I feel. And I just don't think that we're serving the community properly if we don't look back on this and really focus on what we can do better all the time going forward. That's my 2 cents on that. 50 cents.
All right, I'm going to try, and it's small chat, and my eyes aren't what they used to be. All right, this is Donna DeBetapierre, 86 Uxbridge Street. Good evening. My middle school student has life-threatening food allergy, and I have a great concern about the lack of a school nurse located within the building. The nature of anaphylactic food allergies is such that it can escalate very quickly, so that literally seconds can count in responding to an anaphylactic reaction. The use of an EpiPen is not a guarantee to stop a reaction. May require multiple injections to attempt a pause on the reaction, and as such, requires qualified nursing staff to be present as expeditiously as possible to enable them to assess the progression of a reaction and administer critical care until emergency medical services arrive to take over. The lack of a licensed nursing staff during the school day poses significant health risk to all medically challenged students in the middle school, including my daughter. It has been relayed to me that the elementary school nurse is just steps away. However, it's difficult to imagine that one person can effectively manage the needs of almost 650 students, but both daily medical needs and most specifically, if an emergency situation should arise. With the recent resignation of the .5 nurse position at the elementary school, it makes this particular situation even more critical to quickly secure qualified nursing staff in the middle school, and preferably a longer-term individual that can become knowledgeable about each of our students and their individual medical needs. Thank you for your time and allowing me to provide input on this matter, which is personally applicable to my family situation. Sorry, it only allows 200 characters per entry. I just want to make sure I read everything.
Thank you.
Thank you, Scott. So I will continue. We have the individual coming in tomorrow, so I will update people once we know what's going on. And to your point, Mrs. Jarniak, we do have to do better. And we say it to our students, when you make a mistake, you need to learn from it. That's the purpose of coming to school. When we work with staff and we give them feedback, we want people to learn from it. We had an issue that was identified. We had some vulnerabilities, and sometimes I'm not eloquent in my words either, but we know we have to do better for our kids. So thank you to those parents for identifying those things to us. We put some things in place in the short term. We're going to put some things in place in the long term. And I think having that professional development of staff and teachers and principals and secretaries and adjustment counselors, so that they know who our medically fragile kids are and how to respond, is so important. Devin, what was the name of that? The JD?
The Dexcom G6.
No, the name of the, you handed out some,
Juvenile Diabetes Research Fund.
sure, say that again?
JDRF.
The JDRF is a foundation that provides research to, and information to schools. We met today with the principals, and that sheet that you gave us about what I want my my children's teachers to know, gave 10 bullet points of, if you read it and a teacher knows those things, those 10 things, that buys you time. It makes a difference. So we handed that out to the principals today. When they meet with the nurses and with staff, that's going to be part of the conversation that's had. We learned a lot too, just having snacks available to, not snacks, having food available to kids, so if their blood sugar dips or it goes up, having kids have access to it. A lot of kids carry medical kits with them. I found that out through the process. Some parents put medical kits throughout the schools. Some kids don't. One thing we talked about today is reaching out to the nurses, to families, to see if they want to do the medical kits. We also talked about meters. So a lot of the kids have the Dexcom system, but you also want to get an accurate blood reading. Those many times are located in the nurse's office. I worked with Mrs. Keegan today. We're going to go out to see if we can purchase more of those, just to have them located in different locations in the building, where if you have a kid's blood sugar drop below 30 or below 20, you really don't want moving them. The nurse runs up, sees an issue. You don't want her running back to get her meter and then back to get the kid. So if we can have a couple of those meters placed throughout the school, and they're relatively inexpensive. I think you said they're about $25, $30. $30 a meter. So if we can have a couple placed throughout the school where the nurses and teachers know where they are, again, it's something else we can do to buy valuable time until either nurse comes or the EMTs come. So we're finding this out. Thank you for bringing it to our attention, and especially the nuances of what needs to be done. So we want to get better for our kids.
Well, I mean, it sounds like you guys are living it every day. I mean, you have a wealth of knowledge about how to manage these conditions. And I think it seems evident that, the school department, the administration has already learned so much from this. And I hope that, you will remain part of this planning going forward. Not just when we've found ourselves in a tough situation here, but all along. A parental committee would be excellent if we could have a medically compromised committee that nurses could, reach out to. You guys could have, that's just an idea, but I'm just, thinking you have so much to share that would help us in the long term too, so.
Yeah, and I would also just add that I think, thank you for reaching out, because I think a lot of times parents don't know what to do or how to go about it, whatever. That's what we're all here for. Everybody here, everybody in these buildings, that's what we're all here for, So I appreciate you guys reaching out and encourage other parents to keep doing so. Yeah.
I don't want to beat a dead horse, but I also, to what Beth said too, that I think we all have some personal stories or some personal background experience that touches us in different ways, and we think of things that we could relate to. And I know that my daughter had a very traumatic experience with a school field trip that I'll never forget. And so believe me, I empathize more than just sympathize. And even things like epilepsy, it would just be good to have teachers, and I know you're doing it, but I want to say that I am very supportive of it, getting teachers up on different things, that just things like epilepsy, diabetes, things like that you only have seconds. And it is important that all staff, not just nurses, have some basic knowledge, having that brochure of some basic stuff. That's awesome. That's great. And it's unfortunate that it took all this to get to that point, but we're there, and that's good. But there are other things that I think we just have to be aware of, because if my daughter had not been around some sort of medical team, she'd probably be dead. And it's just, yeah, I'm very passionate about what you're doing. Thanks, guys. I'm sorry.
Okay, I'm going to transition to COVID. Just a brief update on where we are, and then we'll have Mr. Bell and Ms. Sosha present on the STARS assessment program. So we started a new testing program this week. Staff received the test kits last week. Students will be receiving the test kits this week. CIC has been very helpful in ordering the things, and they're going to help us tomorrow break down all the packets. I think we had about 125 of our 225 staff members register, and we're almost 500 of our 1,200 or so students who've signed up for it. So that's awesome. They're going to be handed out either on Thursday or Friday of every week, and you're supposed to test on Sunday. We've been asked, is it mandatory? Is it mandatory? It's a voluntary program, but we hope that if you do take the test kit home and take the resources, that you're actually going to test on Sunday. If you test negative, you don't have to do anything. If you test positive, we ask that you send an email to the principal and the nurse so they know that you've tested positive and that you're out. As a result of this new testing program, we're no longer offering test and stay and contact tracing, so parents are aware of that. We ask that you continue to monitor symptoms at home. If you're symptomatic, if you don't feel good, stay at home. If you have access to a test, take the test. The good news is, if you look at our 7-day positivity rating, we're back to where we were in early January. The numbers, the peak, if you follow the 7-day positivity that's put out on the mass.gov website, we peaked on January 8th, and we've been declining since January 8th. And the hope, what they're telling us, is that by February break, which is 2 weeks away, we'll be back to where we were in pre-Thanksgiving numbers. So it's around the corner. We're moving in the right direction. We met today. We talked about staff absences. It's back to where we normally were. Student absences are back to where we normally were. So that surge, that spike we saw right before Christmas and the 2 or 3 weeks that we came back from break, that is luckily gone. Knock on wood. The mask mandate was extended from the Commissioner's office through February 28th. We haven't heard anything as to what's going to happen after February 28th. I know a few people have reached out to me saying, what's going to happen, what's going to happen. We'll find out what they say probably after February break. They've done, sometimes they do a really good job of giving us a lot of notice on things. Over Christmas break, I think we had 2 days to get the test kits out, and we did not have a lot of notice. So hopefully we'll have enough notice with the February 28th mask mandate ending, and be able to make a decision after that. That's what I have right now on COVID. Any questions? All right. I'm excited to have Mr. Bell and Ms. Sosha come up and present. We've been using the NWEA program in grades 5 through 8 for the past few years, and this year we purchased Renaissance Star. They'll dive into it, but this program does a fantastic job of benchmarking students. So kids took an assessment in ELA and math in the fall and was able to identify to teachers what kids were at grade level, above grade level, or below grade level. And then it actually identified the standards that students need to work on and teachers need to work on with students in order to mitigate those gaps. If you look at the January numbers, you're going to see more green, which means more kids going to, I'm sorry, I'm stealing your thunder, I'll stop in a second. I'm sorry, Cindy, I got the look. More kids in green, which means we have more kids approaching or at or above grade level, and less kids in red, which means kids below grade level. So this is a wonderful tool and a wonderful resource that has a lot of power. It's very robust. We just started with it, so we're going to continue to uncover things as the years go on. But I'll turn it over to John and Cindy to give everyone a highlight of it.
I'm going to start, right? Okay. So I never thought I'd be so excited about presenting data as I am tonight, so that's a good thing. So you have the color, I'm hoping you have a color copy of it so that you can see it. So the first one is the grade 1 ELA, beginning of the year. So we tried to give you a visual so that you could really compare. And you can see here on beginning of the year, ELA, there's red, but yet in the middle of the year, there's no red. So just so you know the colors, the green is at or above the benchmark. You see the line going across horizontally. And then you have blue is on watch. And when you look, some of those blues were so close to being green. You know, it's similar to an MCAS. You miss one question and you're already in a different category. So a lot of those blues were very close. And then the yellow is an intervention and red is urgent intervention, just so that you have an idea. Some of the numbers at the bottom, I mean, if you're looking at the screen, you'd never see it, even some of your printouts, they're very tiny. Yeah. So we did an aside table, so we could look at each category. So if we're looking at grade 1 ELA, we had an increase of 12% of at or above benchmark. And I mean, considering some of these kids, you know, have been through the COVID, they've been remote and hybrid and everything else, I mean, that's amazing from one testing period to the next. So we are thrilled with the results on this. I can't even tell you. When you look at urgent intervention on the beginning of the year or the mid-year on grade 1, that's really one student. So even though it says 2%, that's one student. So now we can really dig in there and address that. On the next one, you're looking at grade 1 math. Gotta go back. And the grade 1 math, similar type of picture. So beginning of the year, we're looking at a 78% in the green, and we went to an 89% at the mid-year with an 11% increase. And urgent intervention, if you combine the bottom two categories, say, we went from 12% down to 7%. So we're decreasing where we should be, and we're increasing where we should be. Kindergarten, there is no math for kindergarten. Every program we looked at when we were purchasing, same idea, no math. And they have a couple math questions built into the early literacy. So we're still searching for some math. Right now, the teachers are doing their own assessment of math, but again, it doesn't provide you with these graphics. It doesn't give you the data that, you know, we're looking for. So they have their own teacher assessments right now for the math. So we're looking at kindergarten ELA, and this was huge. I mean, we went from 49%, just look at the green in that one, went from 49% to 73%. I think that was the highest increase of any grade, 24%. These are your kids who weren't in school. A lot of them didn't go to preschool. A lot of them were at home and didn't even play with friends and didn't meet with kids ever. So, you know, this is huge, and I can't wait for the teachers. They only have seen their own results. I can't wait for them to see the comparison. So we're going to be showing them at our staff meeting, so that they can really, give themselves a pat on the back, because this is unbelievable, as far as I'm concerned. All right.
All right, so elementary, we're going to continue those same trends. If you look at the second grade ELA, there's a big swath of red there at the beginning of the year. And I know from every grade I talked to at the beginning of the year, they saw the beginning of the year scores, and there was just great concern, because the kids had missed so much schooling over the previous 2 years with school being completely shut down, doing the hybrid, the remote learning, all those different pieces. And so I think they knew their work was cut out for them. But the teachers and the parents and the kids have all worked together to kind of make some great things happen. So I kind of lumped the bottom two categories together, the intervention and urgent intervention. We went from 39% in that category down to 26%. So that's about 13 more kids that are on the right track. And when we look at these scores, the beginning of the year scores, you can't see the numbers in the left-hand column there, but what the expectation is to be on that level changes as we go through the year. It's not like you're looking at an 800 at the beginning of the year and an 800 at the mid-year. It would be like an 800 at the beginning of the year and up to like an 840 at mid-year. And so it's progressing as the kids are getting older also. And so we're talking about percentiles here. So kids, this is gaps closing. As those kids are moving to green, they're actually making growth. They're making more than the expected growth in order to catch up ground, which is exciting. If we look at math, similar thing. We had 9% fewer kids in those lower two categories, so about 10 kids in third grade moved from those lower two categories into those upper two categories. If we move on to third grade with ELA, our third grade scores for the ELA, we had 27% in those lower two categories down to 10%, so 17% fewer students in those two categories. And then with math, a similar trend. We went from 22% in the yellow and red down to 11%. So again, some great growth there. And also, if you look at just the greens, there were kids that were barely making the cut on the greens, and a lot of those kids now are well above the green. And so it's not just the lower kids that are making growth. You can see the whole trend line on every single kid is moving up, which is exciting. If we go to fourth grade ELA, again, it mirrors that same thing. We went from 27% in the lower two categories to 19%. We had 8% improvement. And then with math, we went from 28% down to 17% in those lower two categories. And again, if you look at those blues and yellows, a lot of them are very close to just being above that benchmark. And so I'm excited to kind of continue to see the growth over the rest of the year, and at the end of the year seeing where we're at. But it's really exciting growth that these kids have been able to make. And I think it just shows the importance of in-person learning. It shows the importance of being able to do small groups and having manipulatives and getting back to just good old teaching, which we got away from the last 2 years with all the different things that have been in place. So lots of things to celebrate, and like Cindy said, we're excited to share this with our staff at the staff meeting on Monday, just because they have worked their tails off the last 2 years. They always work their tails off, but especially these last 2 years.
You're going to get yourself in trouble.
They're all watching. But I think it's amazing what they've been able to do with these kids. And so, and again, it doesn't happen without the support of our families also. And I think that we have to have that partnership in order to make these great things happen. So a couple just things that Cindy and I talked about, just to give you guys some additional information. How do we use the data? We have sent parent reports home. I think, Cindy, have you sent yours, or you're about to send them?
We're about to.
It's like getting a Christmas present. I was so thrilled.
So we think it's important that parents know how their kids are at. We're still trying to fine tune what the right report is, because we don't have a lot of trend data yet. We just have the beginning of the year and mid-year scores. And we're also, some of the reports aren't printing quite right and things like that. But the exciting thing is, if they start taking this in kindergarten, by the time they get to fourth grade, we're hopefully going to be able to send home a report that shows that trend over the 5 years that they take the test, which I think for parents is really valuable information to kind of see, is your kid on track with where they're supposed to be? But so those reports came home to parents. We think that's great that you guys are getting that information. We use it to update our Title I selection. So at the beginning of the year, the Title I teachers and the grade level teachers meet together and identify those kids that are going to go to Title I based on this data, but also just everything else they're seeing in the classroom. But the mid-year, they all met last week to then revise that information. We've had some successes where some kids are no longer in need of those services. We have some that moved from pull-out support to push-in support, and we have some that are still continuing to get that push-in support or pull-out support, but they've still made growth, and we're just excited about that growth. We want to hang on to them. And we have a few other kids that we've now that we've graduated some kids out, we had additional space, and we've been able to identify the ones we want to pull in to give that support to also. So that's an important thing that we're doing right now. We identify students that are in need of that remediation with the additional remediation staff that we have this year. We've been able to target some different things, like I was talking with second grade this week about how to utilize their Title I para to work not just as a pull-out or a push-in, but some kids might need a little something different than what everybody else is getting. Just work with fact fluency or those types of things. And so the teachers are being creative with how to use those additional staff we have to be able to fill those specific gaps rather than maybe having 4 or 5 kids in their group, which is exciting. The teachers have the individual student data, and they're looking at that to see those strengths and those weaknesses and those gaps. And that's like what I was just talking about, where we can say this student really needs help with this one specific thing, and let's have some staff work with them on that to close that hole. And those common planning time discussions are essential, where the teachers can sit down and look at this data, look at their kids, who's making growth, who isn't making growth. If these kids aren't making growth, why aren't they making growth? And you can also drill down even into specific standards with these students are doing well with their number sense, but they might be struggling with problem solving, those types of things. And so it gives some more insight into where each individual kid's at.
Thank you. I just wanted to jump in. So all of those kids with yellows and reds, now the teachers can go into their individual reports and find the skill that can maybe bump them up to into the next category, the blues, and get them out of the yellow and the red. So they really can hone in on specifics. They can group them according to, certain kids that need that same skill. So now we can change our grouping in the classroom. And then just moving forward, again, it gives them that grouping flexibility, and then the standards are key as well, to go in and see which standards they are accomplished in and which ones they need more support on. Just so that you know, the preschool is going to be added into this assessment piece next year. It's not called the STAR, it has a different name, but it's the same company. It's called the Individual Growth and Development Indicators, so we will screen them 3 times a year just as well. And the company is telling me they're going to blend both programs in so that you'd be able to see from preschool all the way up as well. So I'm really excited about that, and the preschool teachers are as well. And then as far as professional development, we've had 3 sessions this year with representatives from Renaissance, how to administer it. The teachers are saying it is so easy to administer this, and that makes it a lot easier for them too. They don't stress over it because it is so easy. So the first time we did it, we had all hands on deck. Everybody's in there making sure the kids know how to, push this button and do that. And now it's like, if they're giving it at 9 o'clock, I can go in by 9:30 and get all these reports. So it's awesome. They love it. We will continue with some professional development, especially on running some additional reports and really digging deep into the own classrooms and their own students.
And one thing we didn't mention, there's also an additional piece. So we give this test beginning of the year, mid-year, and end of the year, but there's also curriculum-based measures, CBMs, that the teachers can give on specific skill sets. So like in math, it could be fact fluency, it could be, I'm trying to think of computation, fact fluency, but problem solving. There's several different, I think there's 7 different ones for math, and then there's, I think, 7 for reading on fluency, comprehension, those types of things. And so our title teachers use those quite a bit, but even the classroom teachers, if they want to say, this area was an area that we know we were working on, they can do a dipstick every 2 weeks, and you can give it as many times as you want, honestly. But it allows you to track that growth on a more specific level on a specific kid also. So we're not doing that with everybody, but as needed when we want that additional information, it gives us an additional way to get that, and it's norm referenced and all that, which we could come up with our own things, but it's nice to have something to compare it to with those national averages and things. So it's been a great tool, and we're still learning some of the nuances. Like I said, the reporting is a fairly new thing for us that we're trying to figure out. I think we can get good information from it, but trying to figure out how to, like even doing this, trying to share, finding what's the best way to visually represent it. We're still learning those nuances, but the information, there's just more than you could even
You could spend hours. I mean, I find myself just like delving in and being like, oh my God, I've been in here for like an hour trying to find this report or that report, what I really was looking for. So, and then we share, I found a really nice one that we've been talking about for parents, where it's a line graph. So it shows beginning of the year on one line, and then the middle of the year, and then eventually at the end of the year, you'll have 3, and it just has a dot. all three areas, and shows the growth. So I said, parents would love that.
Yeah.
I'm like the visual, I want to see that on the line graph. I want to see the bar graph. But that's just me.
I agree, and I also think that, for parents, when, say they have a student that's like, we get a report, it says average in math or above average. So if we're looking at the average things, like what can we do to boost them up a little bit more? Knowing like the specific one or two things that we could do at home to help, that would be the best use of their time that we work on, or things that we work on at home, that would be helpful. Is that something that might be a potential possibility?
Down the road, there is a parent at-home connect that we haven't really looked into, where you could actually get some of those recommendations for skills.
Do teachers pull out specific skills?
Absolutely. Yes.
So is that something that maybe can be translated back to the parents as well?
Sure.
Yeah. And I know on the report we sent home, it had, I put some information in the blog about it because like the overall percentile might be the 65th percentile, and then it had the 4 subcategories or 3 subcategories below, and some of those were like 33%, 50%, and it was like, why don't these two numbers match? And it's more because that's more out of all the skills that you're going to need for that grade level, but it allowed you to see some strengths and weaknesses with your kid from that way. And I think it's definitely something that we could say, okay, yeah, if your child is low in this area, here are some things you can do at home. I think that's something that we haven't done yet, but we definitely could start doing more of that, because I think, again, we're working as a team, and I think the more information parents have, it empowers you to continue to work with your kids at home. And not that they need to be kids too, and we know that, but like, I mean, just when you're baking with kids, you can do lots of things, right? And so just having it in the back of your head so that you know what kinds of things you need to work with them on, I know can be very, I mean, from a personal experience with my own kids, it's nice to know where my kid's at so I can work with them.
Like if I'm lucky, I'll get 30 minutes to maybe make them do some sort of work, and what should I make them do in that 30 minutes is like helpful. But thanks, this is a great tool. I love the color coding graph. I think that makes it so easy to understand and gives a lot of information right at a glance. I love that.
I loved the bar graphs too. I was like looking at them again, and then when I noticed after a few minutes, like, oh, like the top level on this graph is 1100, and this one over here is like 1150. I wanted you to make a little icon that's like, look, exclamation point, smiley face, like, look, and, because they look, you can see the colors, like, okay, the red is shrunk, but it's not just that, to your point, Mr. Bell, like, there's that like exponential increase too, which is awesome. It's really awesome. Yeah, big pat on the back to everybody working with the kids.
Hey, I didn't get one.
I don't. All right,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
And I'll just end with, Anthony mentioned it. Friday night was awesome. I got to go to the school play and see Clue. I think it was great that it was the first time in 2 years the kids had the opportunity to be back up on stage. It was also great that it was student-led, student-written, student-performed. So they had an advisor, but we had kids who put it together. For those of you who might have heard about it, they're acting on the stage, but a lot of times when they were changing the sets, the kids walked up and down the aisles, and that was all improv that they did on the aisles. So it was a great hour and a half on a Friday night to be able to see the kids up there on stage. It was wonderful, a great night. So just wanted to share that with the community. And that's all I have for tonight.
Thank you.
So thank you.
All right, so we will move on to the school committee and subcommittee report, accounts payable report.
All right, so there's warrant 31 SCH 22 dated 1/27/2021 that was signed for $494.84. Warrant 31 SCHL 22 dated 1/28/21. Food services, and that was $20,033.48. Warrant 29 SCH 22 dated 1/13/21. General funds and Norfolk Aggie and school choice, and that was in total of $38,138.51. Food service warrants 29 SCHL 22 dated 1/14/21. and that was in total of $4,106.43. Food service warrant 28 SCHL 22 dated 1/7/21. That total was $10,982.47. Finally, warrant 28 SCH 22 dated 1/6/2021. And that warrant amount was $62,604.02.
Why are they all 2021?
No, they should all be 2022.
Okay, so scrap all those dates, it was actually 2020.
2022.
2022, not 2021.
Yeah.
That's it.
Thank you. All right, moving on to the consent agenda. We could take a look at the January 19th school committee meeting minutes.
We do need to change the beginning. I believe, Ms. Charniak, you weren't present at the
I was not.
19th, so we do need to make that change to reflect that in the
It has me as
introduction.
absent, no?
It is. She-
Yeah. School committee members
That she
absent.
sent today
Oh, okay.
via email was the incorrect one.
Okay.
But she said you have the correct one tonight.
All right.
Did anybody see anything else? All right, if not, I would be looking for a motion to approve the January 19th, 2022 school committee meeting minutes.
So moved.
Motion by Lisa. Looking for a second.
Sorry, this is the first time I'm seeing the minutes, so I'm trying to make sure that I go through with them. I do believe I spoke up at that meeting, but I don't see it here. Noted.
I read it.
You see it here? No.
Is there a specific?
Yeah, my comments on the changes to the high school handbook. I was hoping was going to be recorded.
So should we just put a hold on these ones for now, and you can let Lauren know what, sometimes it'll just say like a discussion was held, or,
I don't even see that here.
no, but we can hold off on approving these. And then if you want to like communicate with her about
Yep.
what portion you wanted added.
Yeah, no problem.
I couldn't hear, did you hear?
Yeah, oh yeah,
Okay.
no problem at all. Yep, no
All
problem at
right,
all.
so we will hold off on those until next meeting. So moving on to the DES out-of-state field trip, Rhode Island Philharmonic link-up concert.
All right, so Mr. Moniz, our wonderful music teacher at the elementary school, is wanting to take the 4th and 5th graders to the Rhode Island Philharmonic Link-Up Concert, which is in May, on May 9th, which is in Providence, Rhode Island, at Veterans Memorial Auditorium. And so this concert, the kids have always played the recorders as a part of their music class. It helps them learn an introduction to playing an instrument, those types of things. This is really exciting because it gets to make it more of a authentic, real-world learning experience, because they go to the symphony plays songs, and the kids play the recorders along with the symphony. And so they practice the songs ahead of time, they go to the concert, and they get to play. There's going to be a lot of schools there. I know because of COVID, they're doing some additional spacing between the schools, but our students will be sitting probably seat to seat to seat within that. But it's an exciting opportunity for us. I know at my previous school in Kansas, we had a similar opportunity, and the kids loved it. It was a really neat experience because it's a fun way for kids to get interacting with music and playing music and being comfortable with that. Cost-wise, it's just transportation. There's a grant that pays for the actual attendance at the concert, and also we get free recorders for every kid that attends also. And so each year we budget about $900 for recorders that we wouldn't have to pay. The busing's going to cost about $1,600 that either we'll pay out of the building fund or through PTO. And we're going to take 195 kids. We'll have 16 staff members that go, and we'll leave about 10 a.m. in the morning, return about 1:45, and then there is Roger Williams Medical Center close by if anything came up in that way. So we're just looking for permission to travel out of state.
I move to approve the elementary school 4th and 5th grade out-of-state field trip to Providence, Rhode Island for the Rhode Island Philharmonic Link-Up concert on Monday, May 9th, 2022.
Second.
Motion by Julie, second by Monique. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Seeing none, motion's approved.
Thank you.
Are you going?
I want to, yeah.
Okay, well, enjoy. Better you than me.
I'll bring my recorder.
Earplugs too.
Thank you, Mr. Bell.
All right, that takes care of our consent agenda, so moving on to the school business and operations manager's report.
Hey, good evening. And I do not have any transfers or reclassifications this evening. But as was promised at the last meeting, we do have Raquel Hammond here, Food Service Director, who has come to provide a school lunch program update. And as I stated at the last meeting, when I gave the financial, I didn't want to say too much because I didn't want to steal her thunder. Since Raquel has started this year, I swear to God, on her first day, she must have come in the door like running, because she really did hit the ground running, and has made a lot of positive changes, and, so I'm just going to let her take it from here.
So hi, good evening, everybody, and everybody at home. I'm here tonight just to give a few updates and insights in the food service program. So just some basic facts about our meal program is that as part of the USDA National School Breakfast and Lunch, we're required to comply with strict nutritional requirements, for example, how much calories, fat, saturated fat, sodium, sugar, portion size, per grade level. Foods and beverages in school must meet criteria of SMART snacks, which is a basic rule, meaning that any food served to students in school, not including what they bring themselves from home, has to meet the same criteria that the school meals program follows. Single item snacks are sold as a la carte in the cafeteria. So for example, a milk carton or a juice container would be separate than the meal itself. Catered events and a la carte revenues help to support the food service department by helping fund essential repairs and equipment purchases and replacements and so forth. So those are just some introductory facts. Here on this slide is too crazy for one little slide, so I did print out full-page descriptions of our actual USDA meal pattern charts for breakfast and lunch. Those go into a lot of detail in terms of grade levels, calories, portion size, sodium, fat, trans fats, and it just gives a at a glance picture of what schools across the country need to comply with. So the next thing I just wanted to mention was My Plate. I'm really a big champion of My Plate because of how easy it is to use as a nutrition education tool all across the board. For somebody who knows nothing about nutrition or everything about nutrition, let's just start with My Plate. My Plate's in front of me at breakfast, My Plate's in front of me at lunch, in dinner, snack. So it's a really easy way to show students how they should be making their food choices during the day. So for example, fruits, vegetables, grains, protein foods, and dairy. So in the school meals program, we refer to protein foods as meat or meat alternates. So we do give students a variety of choices, whether they prefer meat or a meat alternate. Vegetables are required at lunch to have various subgroups. So, of course, me being a nutrition person, I was very excited about that because when I grew up as a young student in Southbridge, we were a low-income family. We didn't have, my parents, moved from other countries. We weren't really accustomed to what school food was. So had there been a requirement for subgroups of vegetables back then, more students would have had exposure to different fruits and vegetables. So I'm just always a champion of let them try it. Try something new, see what happens. So you'll see if you ever come to the cafeterias, we always have a variety of fruits, vegetables every single day. So there are colorful handouts showing what a school breakfast and lunch looks like using the My Plate role model. And it just goes to show how much influence this nutritional tool can have on a student when they're coming through the line and they're recognizing what a grain is, what a vegetable, fruit, dairy, meat alternate, and really just sort of putting the pieces together as they come through. So as I mentioned before, Smart Snacks is a policy from USDA that, in summary, makes sure that food served in school meets the same criteria that the school meals program follows. So it's sort of a rule of fairness in school where, if the school has to follow strict criteria, then we can't have, for instance, a Dunkin' Donuts store at the front lobby. So, it's sort of sets a fair playground. But so some of these criteria are calorie limits, fat limits, sodium limits, sugar limits, again, to make sure that we don't have soda and candy and gum, all throughout the schools during the school day. Any special events and things of that nature, 30 minutes after school, do not have to comply with Smart Snacks. And then just where we are today, in October 2021, it was sort of a good full month of school where it was right before all of these crazy COVID numbers. So it actually is a pretty good example of where we're at in our program. So we're averaging about 131 breakfasts daily. That's about 11% of the school district. And lunch, 561, pretty close to 50%, which is really great. It shows October 2019, breakfast was 21 and lunch was 501 average daily. So in the photo to the right, you can see some smiley faces. Those are students at the elementary school. And it's just, again, showing the variety of fruits and vegetables that are being offered to them. The whole point is that they have choices, that they can try something new and add to their plate. So this slide is just a recap of some of the updates that we've done this school year. So first and foremost, kitchen staff have to be able to cook and prepare food. I can't ask them to cook from scratch when their oven doesn't work. So, we did spend some time, Courtney and I reviewing projects and goals and things that need to get done ASAP and things that I want to work on for later. But these are some of the most important things that have happened so far. So replacing and updating tools, knives, cutting boards, scales, measuring tools, serving utensils, pizza pans. We're making our own pizzas at the high school and middle school. Just having a round, pizza made fresh is just bringing more excitement to the cafeteria. Reminds us more of a pizzeria than an institutional cafe. Kitchen equipment repair, like I mentioned, important that they have the tools they need to do their job. New focus on labeling, signage, and marketing, just trying to bring our program up to date and eye-catching for the students. And then a Project Bread grant award of $6,000 was received this fall, and that was mainly to promote breakfast. So some of the details for that were hot holding equipment. So what this does is it allows us to have more variety of food on the serving line without having to have multiple people there serving. It's quick and easy for grab and go. So we can have prepackaged hot sandwiches, pancakes, waffles, French toast, really a nice variety, quick and easy for kids to just come in and grab as they need. We got display shelving, which is a really nice way to free up essential counter space that can be used for hot holding. And instead of having, for instance, snacks or crackers there, we can move the snacks and crackers off to the side so that we have valuable counter space for our hot and cold food. Primary school got a brand-new refrigerator, which if you haven't seen it, it's lovely. It's a glass front sliding door, LED, lights and shining, right? You know, come on and get it. Nice refrigerator for breakfast grab and go. Ms. Sosha was very kind and understanding to expanding our breakfast program at the primary school. We don't currently really, we don't really prepare meals at that school. So what we do are we stock the refrigerator with plenty of breakfast so that the before school program and the primary school program all have access to meals which are free under this year's pandemic waiver. We also just last week received our blenders as part of this grant. So I'm really excited because National School Breakfast Week is coming up in March, and I'm going to be doing some taste tests with the kids at all grade levels with their new blenders. Oops. Uh-oh. I clicked the wrong button.
I gotta go in the closet.
Okay, thank you. All right, so here's just a couple of quick photos of our new equipment, just to visualize what it looks like on the line. So before having this warming unit, for instance, those items would have to be transferred in and out of the hot holding box to make sure that they're staying hot while the kids are coming. We've also had kids coming after the bell during their mass break. So having hot holding equipment on the line just makes it so much faster and easier for our staff to serve a quick hot breakfast without having to go back and forth transferring food in and out of the warmer. So here is an image of the display shelving at the elementary school and the bright lights at the primary school. It's also like a double win-win for the primary school because they can also use that during lunch, where before they had such limited space, serving space. You hear me say counter space is very valuable in the kitchen because you can only fit so much. You know, you have the trays and utensils and all these things. So the addition of this refrigerator really adds valuable serving space for fruits and vegetables. So new is another grant award we just received. This was the new slide I had to add because I wasn't here 2 weeks ago. But recently we got another award of $2,000 grant that will go specifically for the high school to add a salad bar. So earlier this fall I surveyed those high school students numerous times, wanting to understand what their interests are and exactly where they would like to see their cafeteria headed in the future in terms of offerings and meal choices, because they are the customers. So they did indicate they wanted more salad bar choices and make their own style meals. So what better than a new salad bar? So it is ordered. Shipping supply chain, I don't know exactly when to expect it, but I'll keep you all posted. Hopefully soon. So just a couple of quick updates on breakfast. We do what's called a mix and match, where students can pick any 2 items to go with their meal. For example, cereal and string cheese, yogurt and granola bar, muffin and yogurt. It gives them the flexibility to pick their own versus us handing them a pre-prepared meal. Students are more likely to eat when they've made a choice. So the pick one breakfast items are larger items like bagels, parfaits, French toast, pancakes, waffles. You know, we do cage-free egg sandwiches and more. Primary school grab-and-go kits, those are the only breakfasts that are available pre-packaged because we don't have staff there during the day. So a couple of things that are quick updates for lunch. We do increased scratch cooking in all the school kitchens. We have daily alternatives, including fresh salads, daily sandwiches, and vegetarian meals at all grade levels. And student and parent feedback is used to plan the menus. I've had both student and parents email and suggest feedback, and we use them for for menus, so definitely open for input there. We've had tons of fruit varieties. They've been breaking in their grills, breaking in their equipment. There's pictures of the salads on Friday with baby spinach and mesclun greens. So again, I'm just picturing myself as a young kid and how nice it is that they have all these choices to pick from every day. Scratch recipe examples: macaroni and cheese, baked pasta, chicken Alfredo, pizzas. We did chipotle pork burrito bowls, quesadillas. I mean, really, the whole Tex-Mex lineup, you can just name it. We've done it so far. Grilled paninis, bolognese sauce, freshly prepared salads, teriyaki chicken, roasted chicken, bone-in. And here are some images. You could see the middle school preparing salads, the middle school preparing their baked pasta, the elementary doing bone-in chicken, and the high school grilling up some burritos. You know, in the beginning, the staff were definitely a little, nervous to take on this new adventure, but I'm so proud of them for putting their best foot forward and trying something new, because that's what we're here to do, just try something new, get the kids to, eat a nice meal. So people might wonder, well, why scratch cooking? It takes longer. It's, it's more work. There could be a million excuses why to make food from scratch, but the whole point is that we're a USDA program. So we need to really make sure we're taking advantage of USDA foods like ground beef, chicken, turkey, pork, fish, beans. I just actually went to a USDA conference today with numerous school districts across the state, and everyone's talking about scratch cooking. It's the way of the future. It's the way we need to go. It's healthier. It's more sustainable when the school makes their own food versus shipping and distributing back and forth throughout the country. It's just healthier, lower sodium, and it allows students to try more of a variety. So selecting better for you choices is really just an example of making sure the kids have choices to choose from. So for instance, if the menu is pizza, but somebody already had pizza for dinner the night before, they have other choices. It makes sure that families have plenty of variety of choices for their kids at school. One of the things that I wanted to talk about tonight was supporting farmers markets and local food. I'm a really big champion of, sustainability and trying to grow with the times. These are times where, this fall we had almost half of the crops of lettuce in California ruined by excessive heat and rain. So, climate change is really affecting our food, and it is shown that when you're buying more locally, you're supporting your local farmers, you're being more sustainable, it's contributing more to smaller businesses and things of that nature, which I'm really a big fan of. So some of our goals and ambitions are to increase breakfast participation to about 25%. We're currently 15. We want to increase catered events. We want to increase our locally purchased and in-season foods on the menus. We want to continue professional development to train and improve culinary skills for all the food service staff members. Like I mentioned, we're all a work in progress. We just recently did a professional development where, our food service staff studied knife skills. Just a simple starting point to get everyone on the same page and learning different techniques, how to sharpen their knives, basic steps to move them forward on their culinary skills. One of my big goals is to grow hydroponic fresh herbs and greens for kitchen use year-round. And you might be wondering why. So this circles back to the reality of climate change. It's getting harder and harder to rely on the weather. We used to be that you knew you had good weather from May to September. Now, maybe not the case. So this is why you know, it's really important for students as well to understand how they can impact their future and how they can provide for their community. And so, you know, hydroponic farming is a really great way to do that. So just one example of hydroponic growing, there's a Forks Farms company out there, and they have this mobile unit that has LED lights to grow leafy lettuces. From my previous employment, we had a freight farm. Freight Farms is a company in Boston that salvages old freight shipping containers and formats them into state-of-the-art hydroponic farming. So it's the equivalent of 2 acres in a freight container of lettuce. And it's all year round. The dead of winter, right now, outside, you can open the door and you have leafy greens all year round. It's really something.
Huh.
So, sorry I talk so fast, but we've done a lot. I'm so proud of my team. You know, they've really been working their little tails off, and I'm so proud of them. So definitely let me know if you have any questions.
I'm curious, how are we doing with waste? With all the, you know, obviously offering choices for children, and that's a great thing. I'm just curious how are we able to manage the waste?
Yeah, so funny enough, by offering varieties of choices actually reduces waste. We also participate in what's called offer versus serve at all of our schools, with the exception of the primary breakfast. And what that does is it allows students to select the different components on like their My Plate, so that, let's say if somebody's not a big broccoli person, they can have a choice of peppers or baby carrots. Or maybe they don't want a vegetable at all, they're just gonna have a piece of fruit with it. So it really gives them the choice versus, you know, the olden times of just putting everything on, where they might just not eat it and throw it out. So as alternate meals at let's say for example, the middle school, the menu could be cheeseburger, hot dog, you know, salad. We have garden salad, vegetarian salad, chef salad. All of these items are packaged and sanitary so that if they're not sold one day, it's still good for the next day. You know, so there's plenty of options and variety for the kids. And I'm actually really excited for this salad bar at the high school, because there's a lot of flex dieters out there who maybe one day they want to eat vegetarian, one day they want to go nuts. So it's just a nice resource for them to kind of pick and choose, and also have a fresh vegetable bar where, you know, again, if they don't want to have the, you know, baked beans that day, they can go and pick their vegetable medley from the salad bar.
So I really appreciate all you're offering, and I feel like I'm going to leave here wanting one of those things that you were just talking about for $5,000. I want those in my house. Anyway, so last year we had a joke in my house, and I don't mean to make it like a joke, but it was, because we would call it Free Food Friday, which meant that my kids would go in, they would get food for a certain amount of time, and you didn't pay for it. And the reason behind that was, one, I was one of the few people that had to go to work on a daily basis. I had no way to get to a store with, you know, kids being at home. They would ask what's for food, what's for meals, and I'm like, I don't have time to make meals. Anyway, so they would get food from here, and half the food they would not eat. They're like, we don't eat that. And it was just sad to see. And I was like, when I saw this thing about scratch recipe, that's just great, because some of that food, I felt bad that I was making my kids eat it, I'm not gonna lie. And so that was another reason why I did that, was to see what my kids actually were eating in school. And it made me sad, because I knew that some kids truly out there, that was their only option.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, my purpose is to give students an opportunity to eat a well-balanced variety of food. You know, it's unfortunate sometimes people get stuck in habits, you know. It's just the, you know, fresh blood coming in. You know, my background is nutrition, some people, they want to have convenience food. It is possible to do convenience food in a healthy way, but there's less variety. So that's one of the benefits of scratch cooking, honestly, is that you can take lots of the same ingredients, for instance, ground beef, and make 5 or 6 different meals out of that one item. And, grilled chicken, same thing. And we actually had an exercise today. They put 30 numbers on a piece of paper and they literally at USDA gave us a timer for 1 minute. How many meals can you come up with using plain unseasoned chicken strips? So it really challenged people to think outside the box of being creative. And this is also a life skill for kids growing up in the future, and especially these high school students. One day they're going to have to grocery shop. So what are they going to buy? So it's nice for them to recognize, and actually some of our home-cooked meals are starting to become favorites. For instance, the bone-in chicken and rice and the pulled pork sandwiches are up there, right, with the mac and cheese, so.
And I mean, honestly, we're in a very different time than we were maybe even 10 years ago. A lot of parents are not home. And these kids, half the kids are like, their parents may make them food, but other parents, they don't have the time to make their children all these meals all the time. So to teach them things like what you just said, that's awesome. What can you do with this piece of chicken? And here's a whole bunch, and yeah, that's definitely life skills. So.
Thanks. Any other questions?
Thank you.
No more. So I just wanted to say, I can't thank Raquel enough for all her, she has a wonderful enthusiasm, as has come through this evening, with, not only the food service and the nutritional and the scratch cooking and all, but also with the students and staff. And she didn't mention, even when she first started here, the Adopt a Cow program that she tried to get going. I'm sure, will continue, of course, with COVID, how some of those things. But she came in, like I said, just hit the ground running. I mean, I thought I was bad, but boy, I think she does it. She definitely outdoes me. And I also, to reiterate what Raquel said as well, the staff has been phenomenal, and we cannot say enough about how much we do appreciate that. I mean, it's really hard when you have someone new coming in and they're making a lot of changes, and she did it in a really good way. I love the way that she did it, but still, it can be very, intimidating or whatever the right word is, and they have been phenomenal. I actually think they appreciate a lot of what she's doing for them as well. It's a good balance between, okay, I'm making these big changes, but I'm also looking at your needs, what do you need in your kitchen to do your job better and all that. So it's a really nice balance. So I just want to...
that's mirrored by the kids too. Like, I know I've got little ones, and at the beginning it was like, where's my Tuesday chicken nuggets? Where's my, they're not asking for salad bars, and I think there was a little bit of growing pains at the beginning for some kids, but as they've had, now they'll come home and they'll be like, is this a protein? And even seeing like apple French toast, my little one might have been like a fruit on my French toast tech, but now she's like, yep, so I think it's like trickling down for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just an opportunity, is the way I see it. Really, if you ask the kids to plan a menu, it'd be pizza, chicken nuggets, and mozzarella sticks every day, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. At some point, we got a role model for them and show them about fruits and vegetables, from a young age. My poor son is already, I feel bad for him, I'm giving him fish and broccoli, just like us. But it's important. It's important to role model healthy eating, especially in school.
Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Raquel.
So,
And I assume that's the end of our school business and operations manager's report.
That's it.
All right, we don't need executive session.
We do not.
All right, then I would be looking for a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion to adjourn the school committee meeting at 8:33.
Motion by Lisa. Second. Second by Monique. All those in favor? Aye. Have a good night, everybody.
Have a good night, everyone.